In this story, you're about to witness a political moment that quickly went viral, a confrontation that could have turned chaotic, but instead became a masterclass in strategy, composure, and leadership. Watch as Jasmine Crockett takes a provocative statement, navigates intense pressure, and flips the narrative with intelligence and calm confidence. From viral clips to national conversations. This is a rare example of how preparation and poise can outshine theatrics, and why this exchange is still being talked about across the country. Stay tuned, because what happens here isn't just political drama, it's a lesson in influence, credibility, and the power of smart communication. The congressional hearing room buzzed with quiet tension, an undercurrent of anticipation that made every camera click louder than usual. Reporters, interns, and staffers shifted in their seats, all aware that today's exchange would be remembered long after the microphones were turned off. At the center of it, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett walked in, calm and collected, carrying the weight of experience that made seasoned politicians and journalists alike pause. Across the room, a group of officials and aides prepared a statement about the ongoing discussion surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's documents. Among them, a political strategist nervously whispered about a comment that had been circulating online for weeks, a call for the former president to release the Epstein files. Many saw it as a political stunt, a bluff meant to pressure Congress and the administration into action. But Jasmine Crockett had a different plan. She wasn't going to react with theatrics or panic. She intended to address it with clarity, intelligence, and that quiet composure that made her so formidable in hearings. As the hearing began, the chair introduced the agenda, detailing the procedural matters before diving into the more heated topics. Staffers jotted notes, reporters clicked pens, and cameras adjusted focus on the politicians at the table. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, the discussion about the Epstein files directive, a statement meant to provoke, and many expected to see sparks fly. The former president's public remarks had stirred debates across political circles, with commentators arguing over the implications of demanding immediate disclosure of highly sensitive documents. Some claimed it was a demand for transparency. Others saw it as a theatrical gesture designed to dominate headlines. It was in this charged atmosphere that Jasmine Crockett chose her approach. She didn't scoff, she didn't raise her voice, and she didn't dismiss the question as unworthy of a response. Instead, she leaned forward, locked eyes with the relevant officials, and let a slight, measured smile play across her face. Her opening words were calm but pointed. Statements like these grab attention, yes, but grabbing attention isn't the same as accountability. If the goal is transparency, we need to follow the process, not the sound bites. Her phrasing wasn't just about correcting the narrative. It was a subtle assertion of authority, reminding everyone in the room that the law and procedure mattered more than theatrics or viral headlines. The room's energy shifted immediately. A few reporters scribbled frantically, recognizing that this wasn't just a standard response. This was a moment that could dominate social media, break news cycles, and redefine public perception of the hearing. Meanwhile, staffers exchanged quick glances, some impressed, others slightly unsettled. Crockett had effortlessly reframed the conversation. What had been intended as a provocative, headline-grabbing statement had now been neutralized by reasoned critique and calm, precise communication. A young aide whispered to a colleague, "She's turning the whole room without even raising her voice." The colleague nodded, eyes wide. They understood the significance. Moments like these often decide how policy, accountability, and public perception intersect. Crockett's ability to navigate this scenario with strategic poise demonstrated the power of preparation, depth of knowledge, and subtle confidence. The tension was heightened further when another member attempted to interject, citing partisan concerns and questioning the urgency of procedural adherence. Crockett didn't flinch. Instead, she addressed the interjection with grace. systematically breaking down why process and procedure were essential to protecting sensitive information while still advocating for transparency. Her explanations were detailed but easy to follow, ensuring that everyone from seasoned politicians to interns observing their first congressional hearing could understand the stakes and reasoning behind her stance. By the halfway mark, the dynamic of the hearing had shifted. Instead of focusing on the provocative demand itself, observers were now watching Crockett's technique, her calm engagement, and the subtle dismantling of political posturing. Analysts would later describe this as a masterclass in handling high-pressure situations with intelligence and composure. As the session progressed, Crockett's slight smile remained, a visual cue that she was unfazed by attempts to provoke her or elicit emotional responses. She maintained control over the narrative, consistently redirecting conversations back to policy, evidence, and process. Even when pointed questions about the former president's intentions arose, she managed to navigate the discussion without turning it into personal commentary or partisan attack. A careful balance that few politicians achieve under such scrutiny by the time the hearing concluded. It was evident to everyone present that this moment would dominate news cycles for days. The contrast was clear. A provocative bluff intended to generate headlines had been met with measured, intelligent response that reframed the conversation and highlighted the value of procedure, accountability, and strategic communication. Crockett's handling of the exchange demonstrated that political acumen isn't just about making statements that resonate, it's about controlling the narrative, guiding public perception, and showing that preparation and expertise outweigh theatrics. Outside the hearing room, the buzz began to spread. Social media clips started trending within minutes, highlighting Crockett's .com laughter and precise explanations. Commentators praised her for dismantling the bluff with factual clarity. Journalists highlighted the tactical elegance of her approach. And political strategists quietly reevaluated the effectiveness of viral statements versus measured discourse. Even casual viewers, unfamiliar with procedural technicalities, could understand one clear message. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just responding, she was steering the entire conversation, teaching everyone in the room a subtle but powerful lesson in poise, authority, and intelligence. By the end of the day, what had begun as a potentially explosive and viral political moment had been transformed. Crockett had not only neutralized a provocative demand, but also showcased a model of leadership that combined sharp analytical thinking with confidence, calmness, and clear communication. The room had witnessed more than a reaction. It had witnessed strategy in action, and the story was only beginning. The morning after the hearing, the political landscape was already buzzing. Social media feeds overflowed with clips of Jasmine Crockett's measured smile, her calm laugh at the release the Epstein files demand, and the way she effortlessly reframed the conversation. Analysts, reporters, and political strategists dissected every second, noting how her response had turned what was meant to be a viral stunt into a masterclass in control and narrative management in Washington. The halls of Congress echoed with quiet murmurs. Staffers discussed her handling of the moment, not just as a tactical victory, but as a demonstration of political intelligence and strategic foresight. For Crockett, the goal had never been to ridicule anyone or escalate tension. It was about asserting that the process mattered more than performative statements, a subtle but powerful statement about accountability and the rule of law. Her colleagues, particularly those watching from both sides of the aisle, were quietly impressed. Some whispered about her ability to maintain composure under pressure, noting that few politicians could neutralize a high-profile bluff without resorting to theatrics or defensiveness. Meanwhile, opposition pundits tried to spin the moment, arguing that her calm laughter was dismissive or even sarcastic. But for those who understood the subtleties of political theater, it was clear. Crockett's demeanor was deliberate, calculated, and highly effective. Inside her office, Crockett debriefed with her team. They reviewed clips, assessed public sentiment, and mapped out the potential consequences of the viral moment. "This isn't just about optics," she said. "It's about expectations. The public wants accountability, not pageantry. Our message has to stay focused on the facts, the process, and transparency." Her communications director, Tessa, nodded. "And it's working. Engagement rates are through the roof. People are noticing how you controlled the conversation." It wasn't just social media engagement that mattered. The ripple effects reached lawmakers, advocacy groups, and policy influencers. Across the country, political observers discussed the implications of the hearing. Analysts noted that a simple demand had been reframed into a public lesson on leadership, strategy, and accountability, and Crockett had delivered it without ever raising her voice. The contrast between spectacle and substance was stark. Where the initial release, the Epstein files comment, had been intended as a provocative headline grab, Crockett had shifted the narrative toward procedural integrity and transparency. In doing so, she reminded lawmakers and the public alike that political power wasn't about making the loudest statements. It was about demonstrating competence, preparation, and strategic thinking. Meanwhile, reporters scrambled to contextualize the moment. Headlines ranged from "Crockett dismantles Bluff with calm precision" to "How a single laugh became a lesson in political strategy." Commentators debated whether her response would have a lasting effect on perceptions of leadership and credibility. The consensus among experienced analysts was clear. She had elevated the discussion from partisan theatrics to a matter of substance. And in doing so, she had earned respect across party lines. Within Congress, the exchange had subtle implications for negotiations and collaboration. Members who previously underestimated Crockett's influence began to reconsider. Her ability to navigate high-pressure situations, handle viral moments with poise, and communicate complex ideas clearly made her a rising figure in political circles. More importantly, it demonstrated to both allies and opponents that she could manage sensitive topics without creating unnecessary conflict, a quality rare in the high-stakes environment of national politics. The aftermath extended beyond Capitol Hill. Advocacy groups and nonprofit organizations monitoring transparency and governmental accountability praised her approach. They highlighted how she emphasized the importance of process over spectacle, reminding the public that meaningful oversight required patience, preparation, and adherence to legal frameworks. These groups began citing her response as an example of effective civic engagement and responsible leadership. Crockett's team also noted the educational aspect. By addressing the issue calmly and logically, she helped the general public understand the stakes and the procedural realities behind high-profile demands. Viewers who may not have followed congressional hearings closely suddenly grasped the nuances of accountability, disclosure, and the interplay between public statements and procedural requirements. Even within her political opposition, the moment left a mark. Some members acknowledged, often privately, that her strategic execution demonstrated an uncommon combination of composure, insight, and influence. Others debated how to respond, considering that any overt counterattack might backfire. Further proving the effectiveness of Crockett's measured approach, the key takeaway was evident: a single moment of calm, informed response had reverberated far beyond the hearing room. Social media amplification, media coverage, and political chatter all converged to highlight her strength in turning a potential spectacle into a lesson on leadership and authority. Crockett had effectively taken a moment designed to provoke and reframed it into an enduring example of how knowledge, preparation, and strategic communication could dominate a high-pressure scenario by the end of the day. The public conversation had shifted. Instead of focusing on a demand for sensational action, people were discussing strategy, accountability, and procedural integrity. Crockett had not only neutralized a potential controversy, she had set a standard for handling political stunts. Viral moments and high-pressure questioning. The narrative was no longer about a provocative statement from a former president. It was about the leader who responded, who guided, clarified, and subtly commanded respect through intellect and poise. The political world had witnessed more than a rebuttal. It had witnessed a demonstration of control, mastery, and the long-term impact of strategic communication by the following morning. The ripples from Jasmine Crockett's hearing had turned into a full-fledged wave. News outlets from coast to coast had picked up the footage, dissecting every nuance of her response. Analysts highlighted her calm laughter at the release the Epstein files remark, portraying it as a symbol of measured political power. A contrast to the often sensationalized media cycle. Every clip that circulated underscored a simple truth, in moments designed to provoke chaos. Poise and strategy were the ultimate weapons inside her congressional office. Crockett's team monitored the national conversation with a mixture of pride and careful attention. Political operatives debated over the likely consequences for lawmakers who had underestimated her. Some colleagues whispered that her handling of the moment could shift the perception of her influence in committee hearings, while others speculated that opposition strategists were now scrambling to recalibrate. It was a high-stakes environment, and Crockett had managed to navigate it with grace, precision, and foresight. Beyond the immediate political circle, public engagement skyrocketed. Constituents shared clips across social media, expressing admiration for Crockett's clear-headed approach. Many lauded her for treating the issue seriously, emphasizing process over theatrics and demonstrating that leadership required more than impulsive statements. For viewers who were less familiar with the intricacies of congressional procedure, Crockett's strategy served as both an education and an inspiration, a demonstration of how meticulous preparation and intellectual clarity could counter high-pressure challenges. Media analysts began framing her response as a turning point in the discourse surrounding transparency and accountability. Headlines ranged from Crockett laughs, law wins, to turning Bluff into lesson, the Jasmine Crockett way. Television segments debated the long-term implications of her calm, precise rebuttal. Political podcasts dissected her tone, body language, and rhetorical strategy, highlighting how she transformed a potentially divisive scenario into a masterclass in public perception and policy prioritization. Meanwhile, inside Congress, the dynamics subtly shifted. Members who had initially assumed the comment about releasing the files would elicit dramatic confrontation now reconsidered their approaches. In a high-stakes environment where public image often dictated influence, Crockett's measured performance made clear that theatrics could easily be neutralized by strategy and composure. Allies recognized the potential for her leadership to guide discussions constructively, while opponents began assessing the limits of their own tactics in light of her demonstration of control. Political think tanks and advocacy groups soon joined the conversation, praising Crockett for highlighting the importance of process over sensationalism. They emphasized that procedural integrity and evidence-based decision-making were critical for public trust. By handling a volatile topic with intelligence and calm, she had not only protected the credibility of the hearing, but also reinforced the importance of accountability in governance. Her approach was cited in webinars, educational briefings, and policy discussions as a case study in effective political communication. Simultaneously, political strategists began analyzing the broader implications for public engagement. Crockett's handling of the moment demonstrated that viral clips, often designed to distract or provoke, could be transformed into opportunities for thought leadership. By refusing to react emotionally and focusing on clarity, she set an example for lawmakers, communicators, and aspiring politicians alike. It became evident that the power of preparation, combined with a calm demeanor, could redefine the impact of high-pressure political exchanges as the day progressed. Social media commentary offered a striking insight. People responded to composure more than spectacle. While initial attention was drawn by the provocative statement, it was Crockett's handling of it that dominated discussion. Memes, explanatory threads, and video breakdowns emphasized her strategic laughter, measured responses, and the way she calmly redirected conversations toward meaningful accountability. Even critics acknowledged her skillful management, often framing her actions as a model for professional conduct in highly polarized environments. In political circles, the incident sparked strategic reassessments. Lawmakers and advisors debated how similar statements or bluffs might be handled in future hearings. Some suggested that Crockett's approach would now set a higher bar for dealing with viral political moments, while others speculated that her measured responses could inspire broader reforms in how hearings were conducted, prioritizing clarity, accountability, and adherence to process. By evening, the national spotlight had fully recognized the significance of Crockett's intervention. Reporters reflected on the contrast between viral soundbites and deliberate, reasoned communication. Public discourse shifted from a focus on provocation to analysis, understanding, and strategic clarity. Crockett had successfully navigated a political trap, designed to generate headlines, and converted it into a platform for reinforcing transparency and demonstrating leadership qualities. Her handling of the moment reinforced the principle that true influence in political arenas comes not from reactionary statements, but from strategic, composed engagement. While many would continue to debate the substance of the Epstein files issue itself, there was no question that Crockett's performance had redefined expectations for public leadership across multiple media platforms. Commentators and citizens alike noted how her calm, informed, and deliberate style had created a lasting impression, one that would shape both public perception and the standards for political discourse in future hearings. By the end of the day, the effect of Crockett's approach was clear. What had begun as a provocative demand transformed into a moment of leadership, strategy, and influence that could set a precedent for politicians nationwide. She had navigated the volatile terrain of viral moments with intelligence, discipline, and authority, a reminder that preparation and clarity often outweigh spectacle in the battle for public trust and political credibility. The following morning, Capitol Hill was still abuzz. Analysts, journalists, and political commentators were dissecting Jasmine Crockett's handling of the previous day's hearing. Social media feeds were flooded with clips, reactions, and commentaries, all focused on her calm, precise dismantling of the provocative release, the Epstein files statement. What could have been a chaotic, headline-grabbing moment had transformed into a demonstration of authority, strategy, and leadership. Inside the hearing room, members of Congress reflected on the exchange. Allies praised Crockett's ability to remain composed under pressure, noting how she navigated sensitive topics without losing clarity or focus. Some even speculated that this moment could elevate her influence in future committee work. Opponents, though initially skeptical, acknowledged the effectiveness of her strategy. Any attempt to provoke her with sensational statements had been neutralized through calm reasoning, wit, and meticulous preparation. Crockett herself, however, remained focused on the broader implications. She emphasized that the goal wasn't viral moments or public applause, it was accountability, transparency, and upholding the integrity of the process. During follow-up interviews, she explained, "Leadership isn't about reacting to every headline. It's about ensuring that our actions align with principles, that our oversight is thorough, and that the public understands why procedure matters." The day's events sparked nationwide discussions. Political analysts highlighted how her laughter, a small, controlled response, had diffused tension while reinforcing her authority. It was a subtle, yet powerful reminder that moments designed to intimidate or provoke could be turned into opportunities to demonstrate knowledge, composure, and strategic thinking. Educational platforms, policy groups, and civic organizations used the hearing as a case study, emphasizing how clear communication and preparation can counter misinformation and performative political stunts. As the conversation expanded beyond Washington, Crockett's approach became a model for emerging politicians, journalists, and civic educators. Discussions on strategy and leadership emphasized that influence comes from expertise, calmness, and the ability to control narratives without resorting to emotional displays. Political training seminars highlighted her method as a blueprint for handling high-stakes, high-visibility moments while maintaining credibility and public trust. The impact on public perception was equally notable. Constituents and observers praised her for demonstrating poise in the face of provocation. Many viewers shared clips of her calm laughter, precise explanations, and firm guidance of the discussion, highlighting how she maintained authority without aggression. Comment threads, video analyses, and opinion columns all reinforced a central theme: leadership grounded in knowledge and strategic communication can overshadow attempts at spectacle. Meanwhile, within her congressional office, Crockett debriefed with her team on the implications of the viral moment. They examined public engagement, media coverage, and social media traction to evaluate the broader narrative shift. "This isn't just about today's hearing," she told her staff. "It's about how we continue to set expectations for accountability, transparency, and leadership across the board. We've turned a moment that could have distracted into a lesson that educates." Political commentators also noted the subtle power dynamics at play. By responding calmly to a potentially explosive statement, Crockett had reasserted the importance of procedure and strategic thinking over performative gestures. The viral moment, which initially seemed like an attempt to force immediate action through sensationalism, was redirected into a platform that emphasized measured, effective leadership. The hearing's conclusion also prompted reflection among other lawmakers. Some realized that their approach to high-pressure moments would need to evolve. Crockett's example underscored that political influence is not solely about assertiveness or theatrics. It requires intelligence, preparation, and the ability to communicate complex ideas clearly under scrutiny. Her strategy demonstrated that credibility and authority are strengthened, not diminished, when calm reasoning prevails over provocation. In the broader media landscape, this moment became emblematic of a new standard in political discourse. Coverage ranged from in-depth analysis of her rhetorical techniques to simplified breakdowns for general audiences, demonstrating how one skilled politician could shift public conversation and reframe contentious narratives. Across the country, discussions about transparency, accountability, and leadership emphasized the importance of measured response, clarity of argument, and thoughtful strategy in influencing public opinion. By the end of the day, it was clear that the hearing would be remembered not for the provocative demand, but for how Jasmine Crockett handled it. She had transformed a potentially divisive or viral spectacle into a demonstration of poise, competence, and leadership. Her calm laughter, strategic navigation, and clear communication left an impression on colleagues, constituents, and the national audience alike. Ultimately, the episode reinforced a key lesson: true political power lies in preparation, composure, and the ability to control the narrative with intelligence and credibility. The viral moment had begun as a bluff, intended to provoke and dominate headlines. By the time the hearing concluded, it had become a model of leadership in action, a reminder that strategic thinking, knowledge, and calmness are far more influential than noise or spectacle. Jasmine Crockett walked out of the hearing room with her confidence intact. Cameras followed, reporters whispered, and constituents watched online, all witnesses to a political moment where expertise, strategy, and calm authority triumphed over provocation. In every clip shared, every analysis written, and every discussion sparked, the lesson remained clear: preparation and poise win the day. even in the most viral and high-pressure situations. The political world, the public, and social media alike would remember this as the moment Crockett laughed at the bluff and woof, and, in doing so, turned it into an enduring lesson in leadership, credibility, and the power of strategic communication.